There was a stretch in the NBA when Chris Paul was considered the final boss of NBA point guards. If you were in the same conversation as CP3, you knew you had made it. There was once a legitimate argument for both CP3 and Deron Williams as the top point guard in the NBA. While the scales eventually tipped in CP3's favor, one player would eventually replace him on the throne. His name is Wardell Stephen Curry II. The two took different paths toward NBA stardom. Paul has enjoyed success and national fame since his high school days, when he won the National Under-17 AAU title with the Kappa Magic while securing MVP honors along the way. His senior year saw him average 30.8 points, 5.9 rebounds, 9.5 assists, and 6 steals per game, establishing him as a guard who can dominate on both ends of the floor despite standing at just 6 foot. After graduating high school, he committed to playing for Wake Forest University, the same school Tim Duncan played for back in the day. While the school produced some notable NBA players like Duncan and Muggsy Bogues, it was never considered an NCAA basketball powerhouse like Duke or Kentucky. Paul was locked in from day one, setting school records for free throws, assists, steals, and three-point percentages by a freshman. He led the Demon Deacons to March Madness, but they bowed out to St. Joseph's in the Sweet 16. Still, Paul secured ACC Rookie of the Year honors for his play that year. For about 2 weeks during his sophomore season, Wake Forest was the #1 ranked school in the nation for the first time in history. They once again made the tournament behind Paul's 15.3 points, 4.5 rebounds, 6.6 assists, and 2.4 steals per game season, where he was also named a consensus All-American. But they were upset in the second round by West Virginia. Nobody knew this at the time, but great individual performances combined with a lack of team success would become a staple of CP3's career. Steph, son of NBA player Del Curry, also had a notable high school career, leading his team to 3 conference titles and 3 state playoff appearances. He wanted to follow in his father's college footsteps by playing for Virginia Tech. However, Curry was not a priority recruit. His short stature and slender frame didn't exactly scream superstar material, so Virginia only offered him a walk-on spot. Curry declined and went to Davidson instead. That turned out to be a great decision, as Steph managed to establish himself as one of the top college scorers in the nation in his 4 years at Davidson, even leading the NCAA in scoring in 2009 and being named an All-American twice. The scouting reports for Paul had him as the top point guard prospect in the 2005 draft. He was already seen as an exceptional floor general that can easily run a top-tier NBA offense while being a 3-level scorer himself. However, things were not all rosy, since Paul's short stature had scouts wondering if he would be able to defend at the next level despite his elite steal numbers. His defensive motor was also brought into question, with the consensus being that he can defend well when he puts his mind to it, but that he rarely does so. Still, a Tony Parker-like player was seen as Paul's worst-case scenario. He declared for the 2005 draft after 2 college seasons and went 4th overall to the New Orleans Hornets. Steph's main strength was shooting, but he was seen as a prospect stuck between positions, lacking physical tools to play or guard shooting guards, while also lacking the instincts teams wanted from their point guards. His shooting ability, gravity, off-ball movement, and confidence had teams drooling, but his offensive ability beyond that was heavily doubted. Many doubted that he would be able to drive past and finish at the rim against NBA defenders, despite Steph being one of the most efficient rim finishers in college. With his defense also being a question mark, he needed a team that values offense so highly that it's willing to look past all of his defensive shortcomings. But would there be such a team in the 2009 draft? Come on, this is the NBA, of course there would. The Golden State Warriors drafted him with the 7th overall pick. In 2011, CP3, an established king of floor generals by now, ended up on the LA Clippers after a vetoed and highly controversial failed trade to the Lakers. With the Lob City Clippers on one side and the Splash Brothers on the other side of the Western Conference, the NBA was primed for a series of showdowns between Chris and Steph that would determine who could lay the claim to being the NBA's best point guard. Golden State took the 2012 regular season series 3-1, and neither team advanced far enough in the playoffs to face each other. In the following season, both teams won 2 games each in the season series, but more importantly, they would collide in the first round of the playoffs that year. The 3rd seed Clippers had home court advantage against the 6th seed Warriors, but the Warriors stole game 1 on the road despite a great showing from CP3. Blake Griffin and Paul would lead the Clippers in winning the next 2 games, and the series would go to 7. Both floor generals came out swinging. Steph put up 33, 9, and 5 with 3 steals, while CP3 had 22, 14, and 2 with 4 steals. LA closed out the game 126-121. CP3 had a 1-up on Steph, and it looked like he was still the top point guard in the league. But Golden State would make one very important change in May of 2014 that would eventually turn them into a dynasty. They brought in Steve Kerr as their new head coach, and he would unlock the true potential of both the Warriors offense and Steph Curry. Golden State won their first matchup against LA that year, and Steph would outplay play CP3. However, LA struck back about 2 months later in a game where both Steph and CP3 struggled. By the time their third season matchup came around, the Warriors had put the league on notice. Sunday, March 8th, game day. Golden State won, but once again, neither player dominated. Yet despite putting up just 12 points and 4 assists, Steph was the talk of the league for the next few days. He had such a nasty sequence that not even Steve Kerr could believe what he was seeing. Dancing around and making the entire Clippers defense, CP3 included, look like training cones before stepping back behind the arc and draining a 3 in Paul's powerless face. That single sequence got people wondering. It was no longer a question of whether Curry could surpass CP3, but rather if he already did. The NBA world would get the answer to that question soon. April 1st, Staples Center. The Clippers had a 9-point lead late in the second quarter when Curry pulled off a move that would live in infamy in LA. After driving to the rim, he had to go baseline because DeAndre Jordan was waiting at the rim. CP3 managed to recover onto Curry and Jordan stepped away. This is when Curry pulled a double behind the back crossover that sent CP3 to the floor. Curry immediately went up to shoot and got nothing but net. The move was so wicked that even the LA crowd was gasping in pure disbelief. Curry just casually jogged back without taunting, which probably made the move hurt even more. Golden State would go on to win the game 110-106. By the end of that season, Curry would cement himself as the top guard in the NBA by winning the MVP award and getting his first ring. The Clippers would add to their meme status by blowing a 3-1 lead to Houston in the second round of the playoffs that same year. The 2016 playoffs didn't give us a CP3 Steph rematch as LA lost in the first round to Portland, while Golden State did their best Clippers impression by blowing a 3-1 lead in the finals. Well, except for the fact that the Clippers hadn't ever been to the finals, but blowing 3-1 leads is still accurate. 2017 was more of the same. The Clippers once again lost in the first round, this time to Utah, but signing a little-known free agent by the name of Kevin Durant pushed the Warriors to another NBA championship. CP3 would be traded to the Rockets that summer to join James Harden on a team that was considered one of the few potential threats to the new Golden State super team. That impression looked correct when the Warriors and Rockets faced off in the Western Conference Finals that year. Houston had a 3-2 series lead, but Paul injured his hamstring late in Game 5 and wouldn't play for the rest of the series. Regardless, Houston led by as many as 16 points in Game 6, but Game 6 Clay was still a thing, so the Warriors managed to defend home floor and even the series 3-3. Going back to Houston for Game 7, Houston had reason for optimism and they even had an 11-point lead at one point. All they had to do to win was not miss their final 27 3-pointers. Turns out that was a bit harder than it seemed, and we got yet another Warriors-Cavs finals. They would meet in the playoffs again in 2019, but the Warriors once again won, this time 4-2 in the series. But the 2018 series finished what the April 1st crossover started. CP3 vs Steph was no longer a legitimate debate, but a one-sided conversation. The gap would never really shrink, and it's always crazy to trace tectonic shifts in the NBA landscape to a single play of a single game. But where do you rank CP3 among the NBA's greatest point guards? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video. See you in the next one.